I was halfway through my Saturday morning routine, coffee brewing, laundry tumbling in the dryer, Taylor Swift playing softly in the background, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hello? Is this Julia Winters? A woman's voice, tentative and slightly breathless. Yes. Who's this? A pause, long enough that I thought the call might have dropped. Then, this is Melissa. Melissa Carter. I'm dating Daniel. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. Daniel. My ex-husband. The man who had walked out on our 8-year marriage exactly 13 months ago with nothing but a hastily packed suitcase and a note that read, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. Melissa, I repeated, keeping my voice neutral despite the sudden thundering of my heart. What can I do for you? Another pause. I know this is weird, and I'm sorry to call out of the blue. It's just, I think we need to talk. In person, if possible. The dryer buzzer went off, making me jump. Talk? With Daniel's new girlfriend? The woman he'd likely been seeing before our marriage imploded? Not a chance. I'm not sure that's a good idea, I said, striving for polite but firm. Please, she insisted, her voice dropping lower. It's about Daniel. I found some things that, I think you deserve to know. And honestly, I don't know who else to turn to. Something in her tone, a tremor of genuine fear, caught my attention. Against my better judgment, I found myself agreeing to meet her at a coffee shop downtown in 2 hours. After hanging up, I stood motionless in my kitchen, trying to process what had just happened. In the 13 months since Daniel left, I'd carefully rebuilt my life. New job as a graphic designer at a boutique agency. New apartment. In a neighborhood I loved. New friends who didn't know me as half of Julia and Daniel. I'd packed away our wedding photos, donated his forgotten clothes to Goodwill, and archived our text conversations. Not deleted, just hidden away where they couldn't ambush me with memories. And I'd done it all without ever knowing why he really left. Oh, there had been signs looking back. The late nights at work. The sudden password changes on his phone. The emotional distance that had grown between us so gradually I barely noticed until it was an unbridgeable chasm. Classic cheating behavior, my therapist had gently suggested. But I'd never had confirmation, and Daniel had never offered an explanation beyond, I need something different. Now his new girlfriend, the presumed something different, wanted to talk to me. About Daniel. About things I deserved to know. As I showered and dressed, my mind raced through possibilities. Was she going to confess that their affair had started while we were still married? Seek absolution? Or worse, ask for relationship advice about the man I'd once thought I'd grow old with? I chose my outfit carefully. Black jeans, burgundy sweater, leather ankle boots. Professional, put together. Not trying too hard, but sending a clear message. I'm doing just fine without him. The coffee shop was busy when I arrived, but I spotted her immediately. Petite, with shoulder-length blonde hair and large, anxious eyes that scanned each new arrival. She wasn't what I'd expected. In my darker moments, I'd imagined Daniel's new woman as a younger, more beautiful version of me, my replacement model. But Melissa looked nothing like me with my tall frame and dark curls. She looked ordinary, nervous. And when she recognized me, surprisingly relieved. Julia, thank you for coming, she said as I approached her table. I ordered you a latte. I hope that's okay. Daniel always said it was your favorite. The casual mention of my ex-husband discussing my coffee preferences with his new girlfriend landed like a small slap. Thanks, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. But I actually drink Americanos now. A small lie. Lattes were still my go-to. But I needed to establish some boundary, some indication that the Julia she'd heard about from Daniel wasn't the same Julia sitting before her. Oh, she said, flushing slightly. I'm sorry. It's fine. I pushed the untouched latte aside. You said you wanted to talk about Daniel? Melissa glanced around nervously before reaching into her oversized bag. She pulled out a sleek black notebook that I recognized with a jolt as Daniel's journal. He'd always been religious about writing in it daily, a habit I'd found endearing during our marriage. He'd never once let me read it. I found this last week, she said, her voice low. Hidden in the back of his closet along with these. She placed a small stack of photographs on the table between us. I stared at them without touching. Me. Daniel. Our wedding day. Our honeymoon in Costa Rica. The house we'd bought together and lovingly renovated. Photos I'd assumed were lost in our separation or deliberately discarded by a man eager to erase his past. Why are you showing me this? My voice sounded strange, to my own ears. Melissa pushed the journal toward me. Because of what's written in here. Because he's not who either of us thought he was. Her fingers trembled slightly. And because I think we might be in danger. Danger? I echoed, the word feeling foreign and melodramatic in the bustling coffee shop. What are you talking about? She opened the journal to a page marked with a yellow sticky note. Read this. First, it's from about 2 years ago. 2 years ago. When Daniel and I were still married, when I still believed we were happy. I pulled the journal closer, recognizing Daniel's neat, precise handwriting. March 15th. Initial meeting with Kelvin went as planned. He's agreed to our terms as long as the first payment clears by Monday. Julia suspects nothing, which is for the best. The less she knows, the safer she'll be if things go sideways. Once this deal closes, we'll have enough to disappear completely. Fresh start, new identities, no more looking over our shoulders. Looked up at Melissa, confusion and alarm battling for dominance. What is this? What deal? And who's Kelvin? Keep reading, she urged. There's more. I flipped to the next marked page, dated just a month before Daniel left me. December 3rd. Everything's falling apart. Kelvin says the feds are closing in. The accounts have been flagged. We need to accelerate the timeline. But Julia's becoming suspicious of the late nights. I can't involve her in this. Won't involve her. If they're watching me, they might be watching her too. The only way to protect her is to cut ties completely. Make a clean break. She'll hate me, but she'll be safe. My hands began to shake. I don't understand. What is this? Some kind of crime novel he was writing? Melissa's expression was grim. I wish it were fiction. There's more recent entries too. About me. About how he's using my apartment as a safe house. About how he never meant to develop feelings for the asset. Her voice cracked on the last word. That's what I am to him. An asset. A convenience. Just like you were. I felt like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Daniel was an accountant at a mid-sized firm. Stable. Conventional. Occasionally boring. Not the kind of man who wrote about federal agents and new identities in a hidden journal. You confronted him about this? I asked. She shook her head. I'm afraid to. Yesterday, I found a gun in his desk drawer. A gun, Julia. And 3 different passports with his photo, but different names. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And he's been getting phone calls at strange hours, speaking in what sounds like Russian. Russian? I repeated incredulously. Daniel doesn't speak Russian. Apparently, there's a lot Daniel can do that neither of us knew about. I pushed the journal away, suddenly needing distance from it, from this entire situation. Why come to me? Why not go to the police? Because of these. Melissa slid one more item across the table, a USB drive. I copied files from his laptop. Financial records mostly, and your name is all over them. Joint accounts I didn't know existed. Wire transfers. Property records in both your names. She met my eyes directly. Whatever he's involved in, you're implicated too. Maybe without knowing it. A cold weight settled in my stomach. I thought of the divorce settlement, the surprisingly generous division of assets. The offshore account Daniel had insisted would be more favorable for tax purposes. I'd never questioned it, grateful to avoid a contentious legal battle neither of us wanted. I think, Melissa continued carefully, we need to figure out exactly what Daniel's involved in, together, before it's too late for both of us. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming text. She glanced at it and the color drained from her face. "It's him," she whispered. "He's back early from his business trip. He's at my apartment now, wanting to know where I am." Her eyes, wide with panic, locked with mine. "He says he knows I took the journal." In that moment, looking at this terrified woman across from me, I made a split-second decision that would irreversibly change both our lives. I grabbed the journal, the photos, and the USB drive, shoving them into my bag. "We can't stay here," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Do you have somewhere safe to go? Somewhere he wouldn't think to look for you?" She shook her head. "No family nearby, no close friends he doesn't know about." "Then you're coming with me?" I decided. "I know exactly where we can go." As we hurried out of the coffee shop, my phone dinged with a text notification. I glanced down, my heart stuttering when I saw the name. Daniel. "We need to talk, Jules. I know Melissa reached out to you. Whatever she's told you, it's not what you think. You're in danger." I showed Melissa the message, watching as her already pale face turned ashen. "How did he know?" she whispered. "I never told him I was meeting you." "I don't know," I admitted, scanning the street with new paranoia. "But we're about to find out exactly what my ex-husband has been hiding." "Get down!" I hissed, yanking Melissa below the dashboard as we drove past my apartment building. A sleek black Audi was parked across the street, Daniel's car. He was looking for us. My mind raced as I navigated through side streets, checking the rearview mirror obsessively. 13 months of carefully constructed normalcy had just shattered, and my ex-husband, the mild-mannered accountant I'd shared a bed with for 8 years, was suddenly a stranger, a potentially dangerous stranger with Russian connections and multiple passports. "Where are we going?" Melissa asked, still crouched uncomfortably. "Somewhere Daniel doesn't know about." I made a sharp right turn, then another left, making sure we weren't being followed. "My friend Tessa's lake house. She's in Europe for 3 months and gave me the keys to check on the place. It's isolated, about 2 hours north of the city." Melissa nodded, straightening cautiously in her seat. In the harsh daylight, I noticed dark circles under her eyes and a fading bruise near her temple, partially covered by makeup. "Has Daniel hurt you?" I asked quietly. She touched the bruise self-consciously. "He said I fell. Maybe I did. I've been having these episodes lately where I lose time. Wake up confused, with injuries I don't remember getting." A chill ran through me. "When did these episodes start?" "About 2 months ago, after I moved in with him." She looked out the window, her voice becoming detached. "I thought it was stress. Or maybe I was sleepwalking. Daniel was always so concerned, so attentive afterward." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Melissa, that sounds like—" "I know what it sounds like now," she cut in. "After finding the journal, I stopped drinking. Anything he gave me. The episodes stopped too. The implications turned my stomach. While I'd been rebuilding my life, mourning my failed marriage, Daniel had moved on to drugging his new girlfriend. The man I thought I knew would never. But had I ever really known him? We drove in tense silence, both lost in our own thoughts. I couldn't stop thinking about the journal entries, the strange financial records, the text message he'd sent. "You're in danger." Was it a threat or a warning? My phone buzzed repeatedly in the cup holder. Daniel calling. I let it go to voicemail. "We should get rid of our phones," Melissa said. "He could track us." "Not yet," We might need them. I pulled into a gas station. Wait here. Inside, I bought a prepaid phone, water bottles, and some basic groceries. When I returned, Melissa was hunched over the journal, reading intently. "There's more," she said without looking up. "About someone called the broker, and something referred to as the package. It sounds like Daniel was supposed to deliver something important months ago, but something went wrong." I handed her a water bottle. "Let's keep moving. We can figure this out once we're safe." Tessa's lake house came into view as we rounded a bend in the gravel road. A modest A-frame with large windows overlooking the water. Isolated. Remote. Perfect for hiding. Or for having an uninterrupted conversation about my ex-husband's apparent double life. I unlocked the door, relieved to find everything undisturbed since my last check-in visit. "We should be safe here for now," I said, dropping our hastily packed bags on the floor. "No one knows about my connection to this place except Tessa." Melissa moved cautiously through the space, checking windows and sightlines with practiced precision. Not the behavior of a typical office manager, which she'd mentioned was her job when we'd exchanged basic information during the drive. "You've done this before," I observed. "Gone into hiding." She froze momentarily before continuing her survey of the house. "I grew up complicated. Foster homes. Some weren't safe." She turned to face me. "You learned to be careful." There was more to her story, but now wasn't the time to push. Instead, I spread the contents of Daniel's journal and the USB drive on the kitchen table. "Let's try to make sense of what we're dealing with." For the next hour, we pored over entries dating back 3 years to when Daniel and I were still happily married. Or so I'd thought. The journal painted a different picture, a man involved in something dangerous, something lucrative enough to plan for new identities, and a disappearance. "Look at this." Melissa pointed to an entry from last summer. "He mentions Jay's ignorance is her only protection, and M is the perfect cover. No family connections, easily manipulated. Jay and M, Julia and Melissa." Nausea rose in my throat. "He was using both of us." "As covers," Melissa agreed. "But for what?" I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. Dozens of files appeared, mostly spreadsheets with innocuous names like Q3 projections and asset allocation. "I'm not a financial expert," I said, opening the first spreadsheet. "But even I can tell. These aren't normal accounting records. The numbers were astronomical, millions flowing through various accounts, companies I'd never heard of despite being listed as a director, properties purchased and sold in rapid succession across multiple countries. Money laundering," Melissa said with surprising confidence. "These transaction patterns, it's classic. Small deposits consolidated into larger sums, then dispersed through legitimate investments, then reconsolidated." I stared at her. "How do you know that?" A flicker of something, fear, guilt, crossed her face. "True crime podcasts," she said unconvincingly. "I listened to a lot of them." Before I could press further, my new prepaid phone rang. I'd given the number to only one person. "What did you find?" Tessa asked without preamble when I answered. "Tessa Chen, my best friend since college, former FBI analyst turned cybersecurity consultant, and the only person I trusted completely." I'd texted her from the gas station, asking her to run background checks on both Daniel and Melissa without explaining why. "You're on speaker," I warned her. "Is Melissa Carter with you?" Tessa asked, her tone sharp. "Yes, she's right here." "What's wrong?" "Julia, listen carefully. Melissa Carter doesn't exist, at least not the one you're with." I looked at Melissa, who had gone very still. "What do you mean?" "I mean there is a Melissa Carter who works as an office manager at Apex Solutions, which is where your Melissa claimed to work. But that Melissa Carter is a 58-year-old grandmother of 3 who's currently on a cruise in Alaska. Whoever you're with, she's not who she says she is." The room seemed to tilt. I slowly backed away from Melissa, who remained eerily calm. "There's more," Tessa continued. "Daniel's financials are lighting up like a Christmas tree. Multiple accounts. Emptied yesterday. His official work email sent out an automated extended leave message. And there's a federal surveillance notice on both his social security number and yours." "Mine?" My voice cracked. "Why would the feds be watching me?" "I don't know yet," Tessa admitted. "But there's a bolo out for Daniel from multiple agencies. Whatever he's involved in, it's serious." I looked at Melissa, or whoever she really was, my mind struggling to make sense of this new betrayal. "Who are you?" she sighed, her demeanor shifting subtly. Gone was the nervous girlfriend, replaced by someone more confident, more calculating. "My name isn't important," she said. "What matters is that I'm trying to help you, Julia. You and I have something in common. We were both used by Daniel Winters. The difference is, I know exactly what he's involved in because I was assigned to watch him." "Assigned?" I repeated. "By whom?" "I can't tell you that yet, but I can tell you that your ex-husband is in a very dangerous game, and as his wife— ex-wife, I corrected automatically. "Not according to these." She pulled another document from her bag. Divorce papers with signatures that looked like mine, but weren't. "Your divorce was never finalized, Julia. Legally, you're still married, which means, legally, you're still tied to everything he's done." I grabbed the edge of the table for support. "That's impossible. I signed the papers. The court processed everything." "What you signed was real. What was filed with the court wasn't." She pushed the forgery toward me. "Daniel needed to maintain connections to your jointly held assets while keeping you in the dark. A divorce would have required proper asset division, court scrutiny, paper trails he couldn't afford." My mind reeled. No wonder the settlement had seemed so generous, so easy. There had been no real settlement at all, just an elaborate fiction to make me believe I was legally disentangled from him. "Julia," Tessa's voice came sharply through the phone. "Get out of there now. I don't know who this woman is, but you can't trust her." "You're right about that," said a male voice from the doorway. We all froze. Daniel stood there, gun in hand, looking nothing like the man I'd been married to. His usual business casual attire was replaced by tactical pants and a dark jacket. His normally clean-shaven face sported several days' stubble. But it was his eyes that truly frightened me. Cold, focused, assessing the room with professional detachment. "Hello, Jules," he said, his attention shifting between me and Melissa. "I see you've met Agent Reynolds. Did she tell you she's been lying to you? From the start? That she's the reason you're in danger? Agent Reynolds?" I looked at Melissa in shock. "Don't listen to him," the woman I'd known as Melissa said, subtly shifting her position. "Daniel is working for a Russian intelligence-linked financial group. He's been laundering money for them through U.S. real estate for years. And now that the operation is compromised, he's planning to run, after tying up loose ends." "Is that what they told you?" Daniel laughed without humor. "And you believed the same people who've been trying to frame me for 3 years?" He kept the gun steady, his eyes never leaving Melissa. "Show her your credentials. Tell her who you really work for." The woman sighed, then slowly reached into her back pocket to extract a badge. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," she admitted. "Special Agent Catherine Reynolds." "You lied to me," I whispered, feeling doubly betrayed. "I needed your cooperation," she said unapologetically. "You wouldn't have believed me if I'd approached you officially, not without evidence." "And now you have your evidence," Daniel said bitterly. "Planted in my journal, on my laptop, constructed to implicate me and, by extension, Julia. The journal entries aren't forged," Agent Reynolds countered. "The money trails are real. You've been moving millions for the Starinov Group for years." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Julia," he said without taking his eyes off Reynolds, "I know you. have no reason to trust me. I handled everything wrong. Leaving you the way I did was unforgivable. But right now, you need to come with me. I can protect you." "Don't," Reynolds warned. "Protection isn't what he's offering. If you go with him, you'll disappear, just like the last 3 witnesses who could have testified against his operation." My head was spinning. My supposedly ordinary ex-husband was either a money launderer for Russian intelligence or being framed by the FBI. My supposedly ordinary life had been a carefully constructed lie, and I was caught in the middle with no idea who was telling the truth. "Jules," Daniel's voice softened slightly. "Remember Tofino?" Tofino. Our honeymoon spot on Vancouver Island. The code word we'd created years ago, half joking, that meant absolute truth was needed, no matter how difficult. I hesitated, torn between the man who had abandoned me and the woman who had manipulated me from our first meeting. Daniel's next. Words changed everything. "A lockbox at Pacific First Bank, registered to Anna Morgan, your mother's maiden name. The key is taped inside your old copy of Jane Eyre. Everything you need to understand what's really happening is there. Everything I couldn't tell you. Only the real Daniel could know about that book. My mother's copy. The one possession of hers I'd kept after she died. The one book Daniel knew I would never part with, no matter what." In that moment of distraction, Agent Reynolds moved with startling speed, drawing a concealed weapon from her ankle holster. Daniel reacted instantly, diving for cover as a shot exploded through the quiet lake house. I dropped to the floor, crawling desperately toward the hallway as more shots rang out. Somehow I made it to the bedroom, slamming and locking the door behind me. Through the window, I could see the lake, peaceful and oblivious to the chaos inside. The gunfire stopped. Footsteps approached the bedroom door. "Julia?" Daniel's voice strained. "It's clear. Reynolds is down. We need to go now." I remained frozen, unable to process what was happening. My ex-husband had just shot a federal agent, or claimed to. I had no way to know what was happening on the other side of that door. "Julia, please." His voice cracked with urgency. "There will be others coming. If they find you here, best case, you spend years fighting federal charges. Worst case..." He didn't finish the thought. I thought of the lockbox he'd mentioned, the answers he claimed were waiting, and most importantly, the code word that had unlocked a fragile, dangerous thread of trust. Slowly, I reached for the doorknob, making a decision that would change everything. I opened the door to find Daniel leaning heavily against the wall, blood staining his left sleeve. "You're hurt," I said automatically, old instincts kicking in despite everything. "It's just a graze. We need to move." His eyes met mine, a silent question in them. "Do you trust me enough to come?" I glanced past him to where Agent Reynolds lay motionless on the floor, her weapon kicked aside. I couldn't tell if she was breathing. "Did you kill her?" My voice sounded distant, detached. "Tranquilizer round. She'll wake up with a headache in about an hour." Daniel gestured to his gun. "I don't kill people, Jules. That's what I've been trying to tell you." Despite everything, I believed him. Or wanted to. "The lockbox," I said. "You'll take me to it?" "Yes. But we need to go now." He held out his hand. Making possibly the most reckless decision of my life, I took it. We left my car. "Too easily traced," Daniel explained, and took his, which he'd hidden half a mile down a service road. I watched silently as he disabled both our phones and the car's GPS system with practiced efficiency. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I said as we sped away from the lake house. Daniel's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "I'm still me, Jules. Everything between us was real. That part wasn't a lie. Then why leave? Why the fake divorce? Why any of this?" He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "Because 3 years. ago, I discovered something I shouldn't have. A pattern in the accounts I was auditing at Meridian Financial. Money moving in ways that didn't make sense. The Russian connection? Among others. I took my concerns to my supervisor. His laugh was bitter. 2 days later, I was approached by a man calling himself Kelvin. He said he represented people who were very interested in what I'd found. People who would pay extremely well for my expertise in navigating certain financial channels. I stared at his profile, trying to reconcile this story with the man I'd married. You agreed to launder money? Just like that? No. I agreed to work with a joint task force to track the money. CIA, FBI, Treasury. He glanced at me. I became an asset, Julia. A civilian consultant feeding information back about transactions I was forced to process. Forced? They made it very clear that if I didn't cooperate, evidence would emerge showing I'd orchestrated the entire operation. My fingerprints were already all over the preliminary transactions. My supervisor had made sure of that before throwing me to the wolves. I tried to process this. So you're saying you've been working undercover? As what? An informant? It wasn't official at first. Just me reporting to Kelvin. Then it became more structured. Documented. He rubbed his temple with one hand. Exhaustion. Evident. For 2 years, I maintained my normal life with you while feeding information about Starinov Group's financial movements to the task force. It was supposed to end with arrests last December. December. When he'd left me. What happened? The operation was compromised. Someone on the inside was feeding information back to Starinov. His voice hardened. The same day the arrests were supposed to happen, 3 agents were killed. I received a warning from Kelvin to disappear immediately. So you just left? The hurt resurfaced, raw and fresh. No explanation, no goodbye, just a note saying you couldn't do this anymore? I had 10 minutes, Jules. 10 minutes to pack and vanish before Starinov's people came for me, and for you, if I was still there. His voice cracked slightly. The note was the best I could do. I thought a clean break would keep you safe, keep you clear of all of it. Then why maintain the fiction that we were still married? I didn't. The divorce paperwork you signed was real. I filed it properly. He frowned. If Reynolds showed you unfiled documents, they were forgeries. Another attempt to tie you to me financially. My head spun with contradictory information. Why would she lie about that? Because she's not FBI. Daniel checked the rearview mirror. At least not anymore. Reynolds was dismissed from the bureau 18 months ago for evidence tampering. She's working for a private security firm hired by Starinov to clean up loose ends, including me. I tried to make sense of it all. But the journal? The entries about using me as cover? Using Melissa? Some of those entries are genuine. Early on, I did write about protecting you through ignorance. The rest, he shook his head. Reynolds had access to my apartment for weeks as Melissa. Plenty of time to add her own entries, plant modified files on my laptop. We were approaching the city now, the familiar skyline coming into view. Daniel took a circuitous route, doubling, back several times before pulling into a nondescript parking garage downtown. Pacific First is 3 blocks east, he said, killing the engine. The lockbox key is exactly where I said it would be, in your copy of Jane Eyre. How do you know? I still have it? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Because I know you, Jules. You never let go of the things that matter. We walked in silence, hyper-aware of our surroundings. I felt exposed on the busy downtown streets, convinced that every casual glance from passers-by was recognition. Every traffic camera was tracking us. What's in the lockbox? I finally asked. Insurance. Evidence I've collected over 3 years showing the full scope of Starinov's operation, and the extent of corruption within the agencies investigating them. Daniel guided me around a corner. Names, dates, transaction records, the task force. conveniently lost when it suited certain interests. And this evidence will clear you? It should. More importantly, it will clear you. Prove you had no knowledge or involvement. We reached the bank, an imposing stone building with discreet security. Daniel stopped a block away. "I can't go in with you," he said. "I'm flagged in their system. You need to get the contents of the lockbox and meet me at the location written." Inside, panic fluttered in my chest. "You're leaving me again?" "Just for an hour." He squeezed my hand. "The account is under Anna Morgan. You'll need ID and the key. There's a package inside with detailed instructions. And if I decide not to come find you afterward, if I take whatever's in that box to the actual authorities instead?" Daniel's eyes held mine. "That's your choice, Jules. I won't stop you. But read everything first. Make an informed decision about who the actual authorities are in this situation." With that cryptic warning, he walked away, disappearing into the crowd before I could respond. 20 minutes later, I sat alone in a sterile private viewing room at Pacific First Bank. The contents of Lockbox the 773 spread before me. My hands trembled as I examined what Daniel had left. A thumb drive, a leather-bound notebook, different from the journal Reynolds had shown me, a burner phone, an envelope containing $10,000 in cash, and 2 Canadian passports. One with my photo but the name Anna Morgan, a handwritten letter addressed to me. I opened the letter first, recognizing Daniel's neat, precise handwriting. "Jules, if you're reading this, something has gone very wrong and I've had to break my promise never to involve you in this mess. I'm sorry. More sorry than you'll ever know. The thumb drive contains encrypted files documenting everything. The legitimate investigation that became corrupted, the players involved, the proof of war, my reluctant participation as an informant. The password is the name of the beach where you said yes, followed by the date we met, no spaces, all lowercase. The notebook details my actual movements and contacts for the past 3 years, not the fiction Reynolds showed you. Trust, no. One who claims federal authority without first verifying their identity through the contact on the burner phone. His name is Marcus Walsh, former Justice Department, now private sector. The only person from the original task force I still trust. If you decide to run, the Canadian documents are clean. The money will get you started. I have similar arrangements in place. Whatever you decide, know that leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not a day has passed that I haven't thought about you, worried for you, missed you. I hope someday you can forgive me. Always. Daniel, I reread the letter twice. Emotions warring within me. Anger at being kept in the dark, grief for the life we'd lost, fear of the situation I now found myself in, and underneath it all, a dangerous flicker of hope that the man I'd loved wasn't the villain I'd been led to believe. I plugged the thumb drive into the bank's computer. The password prompt appeared, and I typed, Pacifica Runset 17204 bar, the beach in Tofino where Daniel had proposed, followed by the date we'd met at a mutual friend's housewarming party. The drive unlocked, revealing dozens of files meticulously organized by date. I opened the most recent, dated just 1 week ago. It was a recorded conversation between Daniel and a man identified as Kelvin Baxter, CIA field officer. It confirmed everything Daniel had told me: his role as an informant, the compromised operation, the danger we were both in. But it was the final exchange that chilled me. Baxter. The Reynolds situation is concerning. She's gone completely off reservation. Daniel. She approached my ex-wife, showed her doctored evidence. Baxter. We know. We're monitoring. Reynolds has been working for Staranov's security team for at least 6 months, feeding them intelligence, helping clean up loose ends. Daniel. Including me? Baxter. You and Julia both. According to our intelligence, Starinov believes she may have access to the backup files you created. They'll use Reynolds to extract that information, then eliminate both of you. Daniel, I need to warn her. Baxter, we have assets in place, monitoring her apartment, her workplace. If Reynolds makes contact, we'll intercept. Daniel, not good enough. I'm going to get her myself. Baxter, that would compromise 3 years of work, Daniel. Daniel, I don't care. I'm not letting Julia become collateral damage in this operation. I've already lost her once. I won't lose her again. The recording ended there. I sat back, mind reeling. If this was genuine, then Reynolds, the woman I'd trusted enough to flee with, had been planning to kill me all along. And Daniel, despite everything, had come back to protect me. But could I trust these recordings? Could I trust anything anymore? I packed everything back into my bag, including the passports and cash. Whatever I decided, I couldn't stay in this bank much longer. As I stood to leave, the burner phone vibrated with an incoming text. Change of plans. Reynolds escaped. Meet at secondary location immediately. D. My heart raced. The secondary location. What secondary location? Daniel hadn't mentioned one. Unless, I pulled out the notebook, flipping to the last written page. There, in tiny script, along the margin. Secondary extraction point, Central Station, Locker, Durra 42. Combination, 37 to 1426. Central Station was only 5 blocks away. I could be there in 10 minutes. As I hurried from the bank, another text came through on the burner. Don't trust the notebook. It's been compromised. Come to the address I texted you yesterday. D. I stopped in my tracks, cold realization washing over me. Daniel hadn't texted me yesterday. He wouldn't know about any address. This wasn't Daniel texting me. Suddenly, the busy downtown street felt like a trap closing in. Reynolds had escaped and was trying to lure me into the open. But how? Had she gotten this number? The only people who knew about the lockbox were Daniel and me, unless there was someone else involved. Someone Daniel hadn't accounted for. I ducked into a crowded department store, mind racing as I tried to decide what to do. Trust the notebook and go to Central Station? Ignore both messages and find another way to contact Daniel? Go to the authorities, despite his warnings? As I moved through racks of clothing, trying to blend in while formulating a plan, I spotted a familiar face reflected in a mirror near the escalators. A face that shouldn't have been there. Tessa Chen, my supposedly trustworthy best friend, was scanning the store, phone in hand, clearly searching for someone, searching for me. I froze behind a display, watching as she spoke urgently into her phone. Whatever she was saying, the intense focus on her face wasn't the concern of a friend. It was the determination of a hunter tracking prey. In that moment, the full scope of my isolation became painfully clear. I couldn't trust Reynolds. I couldn't trust Tessa. I might not even be able to trust Daniel. The only thing I could trust was the evidence in my bag and my own instincts. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. I slipped out the department store's service entrance, heart hammering against my ribs. The revelation that Tessa, my rock for over a decade, might be involved in this conspiracy had shattered my last illusion of safety. If I couldn't trust my best friend, who could I trust? The answer came reluctantly. No one but myself. Rain had started to fall, providing welcome cover as I navigated back alleys and side streets. I needed a plan, somewhere to go, someone to contact. The burner phone and notebook offered contradictory instructions, and both could be traps. An idea formed, risky but potentially clarifying. I ducked into a coffee shop bathroom, locked the door, and called the contact Daniel had mentioned in his letter. Walsh, answered a gruff voice after 2 rings. My name is Julia Winters, I said, keeping my voice low. Daniel said you were the only person from the task force he still trusts. A pause. Where are you calling from? A secure line he left me. Prove you're Julia Winters. I hesitated. What proof would satisfy you? Tell me something only Daniel's wife would know. Wife? Not ex-wife. Interesting. Daniel has a scar on his left shoulder from a surfing accident in Tofino on our honeymoon. He told everyone it was a shark, but it was actually from hitting a rock when he wiped out trying to impress me. Another pause, then. Daniel contacted me an hour ago, said you'd access the lockbox and might reach out. Is he safe? For now. He's at a secure location. And Reynolds? In the wind. Local police responded to reports of shots fired at a lake house property, but found it empty. No blood evidence despite Daniel's report of winging her. No blood. That detail niggled at something in my mind, but I pushed it aside for now. There's more, I said. My friend Tessa Chen. She's involved somehow. I just saw her searching for me. Tessa Chen, Walsh repeated, typing sounds audible in the background. Former FBI analyst, now private cybersecurity. No known connection to Starinov Group or the task force. Then why is she hunting me in a department store 20 minutes? After I accessed a secure lockbox, no one should know I visited? Fair question. More typing. Stay on the line. While waiting, I reviewed what I knew for certain. Daniel had been involved in a financial investigation that went sideways. He'd left me abruptly, claiming it was for my protection. Agent Reynolds, or whoever she really was, had lied to me from the start. Someone wanted the evidence Daniel had collected badly enough to kill for it. Tessa was somehow connected to all this, despite Walsh finding no obvious links. Ms. Winters, Walsh's voice returned. Chen's been making calls to a number associated with Artemis Security Group. That's the private firm Reynolds allegedly works for now. My stomach dropped. So my best friend is working with the people trying to kill me? It's more complicated than that. Artemis has connections to legitimate government contracts and less legitimate private interests. They operate in gray areas, providing deniable assets for operations that agencies can't officially sanction. Like killing civilian witnesses to cover up a botched investigation? Precisely that kind of operation, yes. Walsh's tone shifted. I've sent secure coordinates to your phone, a place where you can meet Daniel safely, memorize them, then delete the message. The coordinates appeared, a location about 30 miles outside the city. How do I know this isn't another trap? I asked. You don't, but consider your alternatives. He had a point. I'll need transportation. My car's still at the lake house. And I can't use public transit without getting caught on cameras. There's a garage on 9th and Wilson. Tell the attendant you're picking up for Malcolm. Keys will be waiting for a nondescript sedan, payment handled, no questions asked. This was feeling increasingly like a spy movie, not my actual life. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. I worked with Daniel for 3 years, watched him tear himself apart trying to do the right thing while keeping you safe. I owe him this much. Walsh paused. One more thing. Trust the notebook, not the texts. Daniel knew the phone might be compromised. The notebook was his failsafe. The call ended, leaving me with more questions than answers, but at least a direction. Central Station, locker number 42. I memorized the coordinates Walsh had sent, deleted the message, and prepared to leave the coffee shop. As I emerged, I scanned the street for familiar faces, Tessa, Reynolds, even Daniel. Seeing no one, I merged with the afternoon crowd, just another woman hurrying through the rain. The garage on 9th and Wilson was exactly where Walsh had said. The attendant, a bored-looking teenager, handed over keys to a gray Honda without so much as glancing at my face. 20 minutes later, I was approaching Central Station, still unsure if I was walking into salvation or a trap. The grand old building was busy with commuters, providing good cover, but also countless witnesses if things went wrong. I located the bank of storage lockers in the East Wing, relieved to find the area relatively deserted. Locker number 42 was at waist height in the center row. I dialed in the combination from the notebook, 371426. The locker opened with a satisfying click. Inside was a small backpack. I grabbed it and retreated to a nearby restroom to examine the contents, privately. The backpack contained a change of clothes, another burner phone, more cash, and a sealed envelope. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note and a small key. Jules. If you're reading this, you trusted the notebook over any messages you might have received. Good. By now, Walsh has likely directed you to coordinates for a meeting. Don't go. There. Walsh isn't who he claims to be. The real extraction point is the Riverside Motel, room 17. This key will open it. I'll be waiting until midnight. If I'm not there, check the ceiling panel in the bathroom. There's a package with everything you need to disappear safely. Trust no one. Not even those you've known for years. Especially those you've known for years. Di read the note twice, confusion mounting. Daniel was warning me against Walsh, the very person he'd named as trustworthy in his lockbox letter. And how had he known Walsh would provide coordinates? Unless Daniel had anticipated Walsh's betrayal and prepared this contingency in advance, or unless someone else had planted this note, knowing I'd check the locker. I was so tired of not knowing who to trust, of questioning every piece of information, every interaction. Part of me wanted to find a police station, dump everything I'd thought I'd see, collected, and let official authorities sort it out. But Daniel's warnings about corruption within the agency's investigating Staronoff group gave me pause. The new burner phone rang, startling me. Unknown number. Hello? I answered cautiously. Julia. Daniel's voice, tense but unmistakable. Did you get the package from the locker? Yes. But Daniel, Walsh said. Walsh is compromised, he cut in. Has been from the start. He's the one who tipped off Staronoff about the planned arrests last December. The reason I had to disappear. My head spun. How can I possibly know who's telling the truth anymore? A beat of silence. You can't. That's the hell of this situation. His voice softened. All I can do is ask you to trust me one more time. Come to the Riverside Motel. Let me explain everything face to face. After that, if you want to walk away, I won't stop you. I closed my eyes, mentally cataloging the contradictions and confirmations I'd encountered. Daniel leaving abruptly, but leaving evidence of his true activities. Reynolds claiming to be FBI but lying about her name and background. Tessa supposedly helping me but coordinating with Artemis Security. Walsh directing me to coordinates that Daniel warned against. Jules? Daniel prompted. Are you still there? I'm here, thinking. We don't have much time. Reynolds is still out there, and now she knows about the lockbox. A troubling thought occurred to me. How does she know? The only people who knew I accessed it were you, me, and presumably Walsh if you told him. Daniel's hesitation was brief, but noticeable. I assumed Walsh told her. But if Walsh is working with Staronoff Group, why direct me to coordinates where you'd supposedly be waiting? Why not send me straight to Reynolds? To maintain his cover. Make you think he's helping while actually leading you into an ambush. Daniel sounded increasingly urgent. Julia, please. I'm at the Riverside, room 17. I can explain everything, show you proof. But we need to move quickly. Something felt wrong. The Daniel I knew was methodical, patient even in crisis. This rushed, pressuring tone didn't fit. I need time to process everything, I said carefully. Let me call you back in 30 minutes. We don't have 30. I ended the call, thoughts racing. Nothing added up. Everyone was lying, or at least hiding something. I needed clarity, and I had a sudden, risky idea about how to get it. I dialed a number I knew by heart. "Jules?" Tessa answered immediately. "Where are you? I've been worried sick." "Why were you looking for me at Nordstrom's?" I asked bluntly. Silence. Then, "I pinged your new prepaid, tracked it to that location. I've been trying to find you since. You texted me from the gas station yesterday. And your connection to Artemis Security? The calls you've been making to them?" Another pause. "Who told you about that? Does it matter? Are you working with them or not?" "It's complicated." Tessa sighed. "After I left the bureau, I consulted for several private firms, including Artemis. When you texted me about Daniel and Melissa, some red flags went up. I reached out to contacts, trying to understand what you'd stumbled into." "And what did you find out?" "That you're in the middle of something very dangerous, Jules. Something that started as a legitimate financial crimes investigation and evolved into something much darker. Factions within multiple agencies, private contractors, foreign interests, all intersecting around money laundering operations your ex-husband was involved with." "Was he a criminal or an informant?" I asked directly. "Both, initially. He was caught facilitating suspicious transactions, turned informant to save himself. But somewhere along the line, the waters got muddied. Some evidence suggests he started playing both sides. This matched parts of what everyone had told me, while contradicting others." "And Reynolds? Who is she really?" "Former FBI, like me. Now, works for Artemis, occasionally contracts back to the Bureau for special operations. Her approach to you was unauthorized, a cowboy operation trying to recover evidence Daniel accumulated before he disappeared." "Evidence like what I found in the lockbox today?" Tessa's sharp intake of breath was audible. "You found his cash?" "Jules, listen to me very carefully. That evidence is what multiple people are willing to kill for. It implicates high-level officials in facilitating Staranov's operations. Proves the task force was compromised from within. By Walsh? Walsh? Others. A network of compromised agents and assets." Her voice dropped lower. "I've been trying to protect you, Jules. That's why I was at the department store, tracking your phone to warn you before they found you. And I'm supposed to believe that? After everything that's happened? Look at your original phone, the one you left behind at the lake house. I sent proof there before all this started. Evidence I've been gathering since I suspected Daniel was in trouble last year. Last year, when he first disappeared. Had Tessa known something even then?" "Julia," she continued, "I know trust is in short supply right now, but please, don't go to the Riverside Motel. It's not Daniel waiting for you there. Daniel waiting for—" My blood ran cold. "How do you know about the Riverside?" "Because I've been monitoring Artemis communications. They set up the dead drop at Central Station. They're expecting you at the motel." Tessa's voice was deadly serious. "It's a kill box, Jules." Pieces started falling into place, the contradictory instructions, the convenient appearance of the notebook just when I needed guidance, the escalating urgency in Daniel's voice on the phone. If not the motel, where? The coordinates Walsh provided? No, Walsh is compromised too. Meet me at Keystone Bridge in 1 hour. Come alone, on foot. Leave both burner phones behind. They're tracking you through them. I ended the call, mind spinning with fresh revelations and renewed uncertainty. Was Tessa telling the truth this time? Or spinning an elaborate lie to lure me into her own trap? As I drove toward downtown, no particular destination in mind yet, my gaze fell on a newspaper abandoned on the passenger seat. The headline caught my attention. Audit firm executive found dead in hotel room. I pulled over to read the article, stomach knotting as I scanned the text. Kelvin Baxter, senior partner at Meridian Financial Consulting, discovered dead of apparent suicide yesterday morning. The same Kelvin who had recruited Daniel. The same Kelvin featured in the recorded conversation on the thumb drive, identified there as a CIA field officer, not a financial executive. Someone was tying up loose ends, and I was rapidly running out of time to figure out who was hunting. Me and who, if anyone, was truly trying to help. I made a decision then. Not based on trust, I had none left to give, but on the one consistent factor in this entire twisted situation: self-interest. Whoever wanted the evidence in my possession wouldn't kill me until they had it. Which meant the safest place to be, paradoxically, was face-to-face with the person most desperate to find me. Instead of driving to the Riverside Motel or Keystone Bridge, I headed toward a different destination entirely, one no one had mentioned, but which featured prominently in the files I'd reviewed from the lockbox. The evidence Daniel had collected pointed to one location as the nexus of Starinov Group's operations in the city. One place where answers might finally outweigh questions. Was done being manipulated, done being a pawn in someone else's game. It was time to change the rules. The Meridian Financial Headquarters loomed before me, its glass facade reflecting the darkening sky. According to the files in Daniel's lockbox, this 20-story building housed not just a legitimate financial firm, but also the operational center for Starinov Group's money laundering activities. If I wanted answers, real answers, not the convenient narratives everyone kept feeding me, this was where I'd find them. Getting inside was easier than expected. The security guard barely glanced at the Meridian employee ID card I'd found in Daniel's lockbox, a contingency he'd apparently prepared but never mentioned. The photo looked enough like me if you weren't paying close attention, and the evening shift guard wasn't. I took the elevator to the 17th floor, where the files indicated Kelvin Baxter had maintained a private office, the same Kelvin, who now lay dead of an apparent suicide. My pulse quickened as the elevator climbed. I was either about to find vital evidence or walk straight into a trap. The executive floor was mostly deserted at this hour, just a few lights visible in distant offices. Baxter's office was at the end of the hall, his name still on the door, despite his death barely 24 hours earlier. The door was locked, but among the keys in the lockbox had been one marked with an M. Meridian, I now realized. It fit perfectly. Inside, Baxter's office showed no signs of police investigation or even awareness of his death. Everything was immaculate, desk organized, computer in sleep mode, not so much as a coffee cup out of place. Far too pristine for a man who wouldn't be returning, someone had sanitized this room. I moved quickly, aware that my unauthorized presence would eventually be noticed. The computer was password protected, as expected. I tried Starinov. Nothing. Operation Glacier, the task force name mentioned in Daniel's files. Still nothing. On a hunch, I tried Walsh. The screen unlocked instantly. Interesting. I searched for files related to Daniel, finding several folders of surveillance photos. Daniel at our home. Daniel meeting with various men in suits. Daniel and me at restaurants, movies, even on vacation. Years of our lives, secretly documented. Another folder labeled Winters J. Contained surveillance of me, just me, after Daniel had left. Photos of me at work, with friends, at the grocery store. The most recent was from yesterday morning, showing me at my apartment complex collecting mail, completely unaware of the events about to unfold. My skin crawled. I'd been watched for months without knowing. A third folder labeled Team contained dossiers on various individuals. I opened the one for Reynolds K. The photo matched the woman I knew as Melissa, Agent Reynolds, but the details were shocking. Catherine Reynolds had indeed been FBI, but had been recruited for a deep cover operation 3 years ago, infiltrating Artemis Security to gather evidence on their illegal activities on behalf of Starinov Group. Her dismissal from the Bureau had been staged as part of her cover. I frowned, confused. If Reynolds was undercover FBI, why approach me with lies? Why the elaborate setup? I checked the file for Walsh M. According to his dossier, Marcus Walsh had been Justice Department, until an internal investigation found evidence of him selling information. He'd been quietly forced to resign, then hired by Artemis as a consultant, allowing him to maintain his government contacts. Lastly, I opened Chen T. My breath caught. According to Baxter's files, Tessa had never left the FBI. She'd been assigned to maintain contact with me after Daniel's disappearance, to monitor me for any signs that he had reached out or shared sensitive information. Our entire friendship had been an assignment. Before I could process this betrayal, I noticed one more folder. Winters, D. Operation Thaw. Inside was a single document, the true operation file for Daniel's undercover work. I scanned it quickly, pieces finally falling into place. Daniel had indeed discovered irregularities in Starinov accounts and reported them, becoming an informant. But the operation had become more complex when they discovered leaks within the task force. Daniel had been asked to play a dangerous triple game, appearing to cooperate with Starinov while actually gathering evidence, while also appearing compromised, to smoke out the real traitors within the task force. The report's final pages detailed how the extraction had failed. Daniel's cover had been blown. He'd been forced to flee, with the contingency plan being to cut all ties, including to me, for everyone's safety. A handwritten note was paperclipped to the last page. D. Winters still refusing to activate package. Snowfall despite escalating risks to J. Winters. Recommend forcible activation through Reynolds. Package Snowfall. What was that? And what did it have to do with me? I was copying files to a USB drive when the office door opened. I spun around, expecting security guards or worse. Daniel stood in the doorway. Not the polished accountant I'd been married to, nor the tactical operative from the lake house. This Daniel looked exhausted, his face drawn with tension and lack of sleep. But his eyes, they were the same eyes I'd fallen in love with years ago, watching me now with a mixture of relief and resignation. I knew you'd figure it out, he said, quietly, closing the door behind him. That you'd come here instead of the meeting points. I kept the desk between us, still unsure who to trust. Why are you here? Same reason you are. Answers. He gestured to the computer. I see you found Baxter's files. Some of them. I studied him carefully. You were undercover the whole time. He nodded. From the moment I discovered the Starinov connections, it started as a simple informant arrangement, evolved into something much more complicated. And you never told me. For 3 years while we were married, you kept this from me. I had to, Jules. Pain flickered across his face. At first, they convinced me it was safer for you not to know. Later, when I realized how deep the corruption went, I knew telling you would make you a target. I'm a target anyway, I pointed out. Have been since you left, apparently. Daniel moved cautiously into the room, keeping his distance as if afraid of spooking me. That was never supposed to happen. The plan was for me to disappear, feed information remotely, let the task force handle the arrests while I stayed hidden. You were supposed to be left completely alone. What changed? Walsh? Daniel's expression hardened. He was working for Starinov the entire time, feeding them information about the operation. When I realized he'd compromised everything, I started creating backdoor files, insurance. Evidence against not just Starinov, but the corrupt agents protecting them. The thumb drive I'd found in the lockbox. But how does that involve me? Why am I being hunted? Daniel looked pained. Because of Package Snowfall, a failsafe I created, but refused to activate. What is it? You are Jules. He met my eyes directly. Your name is on half the offshore accounts I set up while working undercover. Your electronic signature, your biometric data, all added remotely without your knowledge. In case something happened to me, you could access everything, transfer, The evidence to authorities. I stared at him, the implications sinking in. You used me as your insurance policy? Without my consent? I created the access but never intended to use it. Baxter and the others pushed me to activate you, to make you aware of your access and how to use it if I disappeared. I refused. His voice cracked slightly. Then Baxter was killed, and Reynolds was dispatched to find you, to activate package. Snowfall with or without my cooperation? Is she really undercover FBI? Yes, but she went off book with her approach to you, created her own plan to use my journal, manipulated evidence to turn you against me. Daniel shook his head. The real plan was for her to bring you in officially, debrief you, help you access the account safely. I tried to process everything. And Tessa? Was our entire friendship a lie? Not entirely. Daniel's expression softened. She was assigned. To monitor you after I left? Yes. But her friendship with you predates all of this. They chose her precisely because you already trusted her. A small comfort, but something. So who's trying to kill me? Staranov's people? Yes, but they're not who you think. Daniel moved to the computer, typing rapidly to pull up another file. Staranov Group isn't just Russian money launderers. It's a coalition of corrupt officials, private security firms like Artemis, and financial institutions like Meridian. They've created a shadow financial system for moving illicit funds globally. The screen displayed a complex organizational chart. At the top was a name that made my blood run cold: Richard Walsh, Marcus Walsh's brother. The head of this entire operation is Walsh's brother? I asked incredulously. Former Treasury Secretary Richard Walsh, architect of the deregulation that made these operations possible, now private citizen reaping the benefits through layers of shell companies. Daniel's voice held controlled fury. The task force was compromised from the beginning because Walsh's brother was running it. Now everything made horrible sense. Why Daniel had fled so abruptly, why I'd been monitored, why everyone from Reynolds to Tessa to Walsh himself had been feeding me partial truths and convenient lies. We need to go, Daniel said urgently, checking his watch. Security does rounds on this floor every 30 minutes. We've got about 5 minutes. Where? Everyone is after us. There's nowhere safe. There's one place. Daniel held out his hand. Do you trust me? One last time? Did I? After all the lies, the secrets, the danger he'd exposed me to? I stared at his outstretched hand, weighing everything I'd learned against the man I'd once known better than anyone. Package Snowfall, I said instead of answering. Show me how to access it. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. I'll need your fingerprint on Baxter's scanner and your voice for biometric confirmation. 2 minutes later, I'd been activated, given access codes and authentication protocols for accounts containing not just evidence of financial crimes, but a complete parallel record of the entire corrupt operation. Names, dates, transactions, recorded conversations, everything needed to bring down Staranov Group, Artemis Security, and the Walsh brothers. What do we do with this? I asked, overwhelmed by the responsibility. That's your choice. Daniel's gaze was steady. The original plan was for you to access these accounts only if I disappeared permanently, to ensure the evidence reached the right authorities. And now? Now we're both targets. We can run. I have exit strategies, new identities ready. Or we can end this. A security badge swiped outside the door. We were out of time. Choose, Jules, Daniel urged quietly. In that moment, everything became clear. The fear, confusion, and betrayal of the past 2 days crystallized into absolute certainty. About what I needed to do? We end this, I said, pressing the final command to transfer the complete package Snowfall to 3 separate secure servers. One belonging to the Justice Department's Independent Inspector General, one to an International Financial Crimes Task Force, and one to a respected investigative journalism organization. Confirmation messages appeared as the door swung open. But instead of security guards, Tessa stood in the doorway, gun raised. "Step away from the computer, Julia." Her voice was professional, detached, so different from the warm, supportive friend I'd known for years. "It's too late," I said calmly. "Everything's already been sent. Package Snowfall is activated and deployed." Tessa's expression flickered. "You have no idea what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done." I stood straighter, no longer afraid. "I've exposed the truth, all of it, including your role in monitoring me for the past year." "I was protecting you," she insisted, "keeping you clear of all this. While reporting my every move to an operation run by corrupt officials." I shook my head. "Some protection." Daniel moved slightly, positioning himself between me and Tessa. "It's over, Chen. In about 10 minutes, everyone from the director of the FBI to reporters at the Washington Post will have complete documentation of Starinov Group's operations, including the Walsh brothers' involvement and the compromised agents within federal agencies." Tessa's gun wavered, indecision clear on her face. Her phone buzzed. She checked it one-handed, her expression changing as she read the message. "They're activating the kill order," she said, suddenly urgent. "For both of you and anyone connected, to Package Snowfall." To my shock, she lowered her weapon. "You need to come with me now. I have a secure exit route." "Why would we trust you?" I demanded. "Because I just got confirmation that my cover team is in position." Tessa's professional mask dropped, revealing the friend I'd known. "Did you really think I'd be monitoring you for a year without verifying who was giving the orders? I've been building my own case file on Walsh and his brother for months." Daniel and I exchanged glances. Trust had become a rare commodity, but time was running out. "If you're lying," Daniel began. "She's not," came another voice from the hallway. Agent Reynolds, the real Catherine Reynolds, appeared behind Tessa. "Chen's been working with my team since she identified the corruption within the task force. We just couldn't risk telling either of you until Package Snowfall was deployed." The pieces realigned in my mind. "The tranquilizer round at the lake house," I said to Reynolds. "You faked being hit," she nodded. "Had to make it convincing for anyone monitoring. Let them think Daniel had neutralized me while I repositioned to track you both." "We have 2 minutes before Artemis security teams reach this floor," Tessa said, urgently. "Are you coming or not?" Daniel looked at me, the decision visibly mine to make. After everything we'd been through, the lies, the secrets, the betrayals both real and manufactured, I had to decide who, if anyone, I could still trust. I thought of the surveillance photos, the journal entries, the contradictory instructions everyone had given me. I thought of Daniel leaving with nothing but a hasty note, of Tessa monitoring me while pretending to be my friend, of Reynolds approaching me under false pretenses. Then I thought of Daniel creating a failsafe but refusing to activate it, to keep me away from danger as long as possible, of Tessa, who could have reported my texts about Daniel yesterday but had apparently launched her own investigation instead, of Reynolds, who could have killed us both at the lake house but had chosen a more complicated path. "Lead the way," I said finally. "But Daniel stays with me." What followed was a carefully choreographed extraction, through service corridors, down emergency stairs, into waiting vehicles with agents I didn't recognize. Daniel's hand remained firmly in mine throughout, a lifeline in the chaos. Hours later, we sat in a secure federal building, providing formal statements about everything that had happened. Package Snowfall had detonated across multiple agencies simultaneously, making cover-ups impossible. Richard Walsh had been taken into custody at his Georgetown home. His brother Marcus was still at large, but every law enforcement agency in the country was looking for him. "What happens now?" I asked Daniel as we sat alone in a bland conference room, momentarily left to ourselves between debriefing sessions. "Witness protection, most likely," he said. "At least until the trials are over. The Starinov network is extensive. They'll have resources even with the Walshes in custody. Together? I asked, the question loaded with unspoken meaning. Daniel met my gaze directly. That's entirely up to you, Jules. I kept secrets that put you in danger, left you without explanation, used your identity as a contingency without your knowledge. I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see me again. I considered everything we'd been through, everything I'd learned. The anger and hurt were still there, but alongside something else, understanding, not justification for his choices, but context that made them, if not right, at least comprehensible. You should have trusted me from the beginning, I said finally. Told me everything, let me make my own choices. You're right. He didn't try to defend himself. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really underestimating you. After seeing how you handled everything these past 2 days, I won't make that mistake again. It wasn't a declaration of love or a promise of reconciliation. It was something more fundamental: respect, recognition of my agency, my capability, my right to know the truth no matter how complicated or dangerous. I don't know if we can rebuild what we had, I admitted. Too much has happened. I know. His expression was sad but accepting. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. Before I could respond, Tessa entered the room, her professional demeanor firmly in place despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. They're ready for your final statements, she said. After that, you'll be transferred to a secure location to begin the protection process. I stood, gathering myself for the next step in this surreal journey. Tessa, one question. Our friendship, how much of it was real? She hesitated, then answered with surprising candor. It started as an assignment, but not everything can be faked for years, Julia. The concern was real. The late-night talks, the support during your divorce. That was me, not the job. I nodded, not quite ready to forgive, but understanding the impossible position she'd been in. Will you be involved in our protection? Daniel asked her. No, too many complications, too much history. Tessa's professional mask slipped briefly. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Both of you deserved better. As we followed her toward the rooms where federal prosecutors waited to take our statements, Daniel's hand found mine again. Not presumptuous, not demanding, simply offering connection, support, presence. I didn't pull away. The truth about Daniel's secret life had nearly destroyed me. The truth about who he really was, flawed, complicated, but ultimately trying to do the right thing, might eventually save us both. For now, we walked together into an uncertain future, bound not by the lies of our past, but by the truths we'd finally uncovered, about the conspiracy that had engulfed us, about the people we'd trusted, and most importantly, about ourselves. Sometimes the most dangerous secrets are the ones we keep from ourselves, the truths we're afraid to face about what we're capable of, what we'll forgive, and who we really are when everything familiar is stripped away. My ex's new girlfriend had called me with manufactured evidence, setting in motion events that had exposed genuine corruption. Daniel had created a failsafe he'd never wanted to use. I had discovered strength I never knew I possessed. The secrets were out now. All of them. What we would build from their wreckage remained to be seen.